Hi everyone, I'm here with your book recommendations for this week. So the first one I'm going to talk about, jumping right in, is a book called RUMAYSA, A Fairy Tale. And I love this one because it's a reimagining of fairy tales, traditional tales that we probably all already know, but set in a different culture with slightly different names, and also imagining the characters as playing a slightly different part in their story than we're perhaps used to hearing. So I'll read you a little bit from the blurb. It says, "Step into a once upon a time where anything is possible. For as long as she can remember, RUMAYSA has been locked away in her tower, forced to spin straw into gold for the evil witch, unable to leave. Until one day, after dropping a hijab out of her small window, RUMAYSA realises how she might be able to escape. This funny and enchanting debut weaves together three stories, spinning the classic fairy tale to show that anyone can be a hero." There's actually some of these traditional tales. So RUMAYSA is a retelling of the Rapunzel story. Then there's Cinderella, which is a retelling of Cinderella, and Sleeping Sarah, which is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty. And actually what the author's done, which is really clever, is to kind of connect the three stories and have elements of them weaving through the others. So although it's split into kind of three stories within here, there's a connection between all three. And I really like, because actually, you know, they're fairy tales and traditional tales are fantastic, but a lot of the time, especially the girls in the story, have to kind of sit around and wait for someone to rescue them. They don't get to be kind of in charge of their own lives. And while that was potentially more reflective of how society was when they were written, things are quite different now, and certainly should be even more different moving forward. So reimagining those tales in a different way and into a different culture is a really interesting thing to do. And this book is really well written. It's really fun. Even if you don't know any of the stories that it's based on, you'll still really love this. And there's illustrations within it. It's by Radiya, Hafiza, and it's illustrated by Rhaida, Elle, Touny. And there are some, not just the cover illustrations, there are some pictures inside as well. So yeah, that's my first recommendation. My second recommendation is A Kind of Spark by Elle McNicoll. And let me just see who did the cover illustration on this, Kay Wilson. And this is a fantastic book. I only just finished this one the other day, and I've read lots about it before I read it, which sometimes I find a bit tricky because it can be a bit of an anticlimax, but this one wasn't at all. So I'm going to read you the blurb and then I'll tell you a bit more about it. It says, "Other people's minds are small. Your mind is enormous. You don't want to be like other people." Addie knows exactly who she is. Addie knows that sharks are more interesting than dolphins. She knows that her favourite words in the thesaurus, she knows her favourite words in the thesaurus, and she knows that her older sisters are opposites. And when Addie learns about the witch trials that happened in her hometown, she knows that there is more to the story of these witches, just like there's more to her. As Addie tries to get to her small town to make a memorial for the witches, can she challenge the way they see her? A Kind of Spark is a story about courage, friendship, and what it means to be different. And so Addie, the main character in this story, is autistic, as is one of her older sisters. And actually, Elle McNicoll, who wrote this book, is also neurodiverse as opposed to neurotypical. Which means that, you know, that's a term, neurodiverse is a term that we use for describing lots of different ways in which people's brains might work differently. And so, yeah, so this is sort of an own voices book. Elle McNicoll is writing from her own experience of what it's like to be autistic, and how people have kind of reacted to her in the past, the things that have helped, the things that are important to her. And so although the story is fiction, she's bringing a lot of her own experience into it, which is fantastic. And you've probably heard me mention own voices stories before. Actually, brilliantly, we're seeing more and more of them, of people, you know, we're able to learn about all the different people in our society, but actually the best way to do that is from people who have had those experiences or lived those lives. So even with all of that said, I think actually the illustrator they chose is someone who's got ADHD. yeah, this story is absolutely fantastic. Although the fact that the main character Addie is autistic is a huge part of the story, it's not sort of a story purely about being autistic. It's about these witch trials, as it says on the back, and trying to get a memorial to those people, because you may or may not know about it, but actually women who were sort of seen to be witches, in inverted commas, were treated very badly in the past. And hearing about that in a history lesson at school affects Addie really deeply. And she wants to change that. So she sort of campaigns for that to be different, and for a memorial in her town to these women who were treated as witches in the past. But it's brilliantly written, really, really sort of pacey story. You want to keep reading on. There's there's a lot that happens in it, and there's a lot to make you think as well. So actually, although I wanted to keep reading on, some of the time I did make myself put the book down and just stop and really, really try and take in what I'd read, so that I was appreciating the story. But yeah, absolutely brilliant book. This one is a picture book, so if you like any of the Oi Frog stories, there are quite a few in that series now. This is by the same pairing, so Kes Gray and Jim Field, and it's called How Many Legs, and it's a really fun story. Just a little blurb on the back says, how many legs would there be if a dog walked in with a chimpanzee, or a squid rode in on a buffalo? So it's sort of mainly rhyming in here, and in each story, let me see if I can get to the beginning, in each page, sorry. So you can always tell this is a sign of a well-loved book in our house when there's sellotape on it, because the pages have been ripped as we've gone through it so many times. How many legs would there be if in this room there was only me? So you can count, there are 2 legs. How many legs would there be if a polar bear came in for tea? So we add 4 more legs. But then we think, do we count the legs on the table as well? And on each page, there are more and more legs. And eventually, at the end, you get yourself an answer. And I won't reveal what that is, because I won't give it away. But it's a fun story, whether you do the counting or not. But if you enjoy maths puzzles and counting and things like that, this is a really, really fun book for that as well. And the illustrations, as you'd expect from Jim Field, are brilliant. So colourful and vibrant and full of life, with great expressions. I think we can probably imagine what that poor pig feels like. So that's a really, really lovely picture book. And then this last one is a non-fiction book called Wild Cities by Ben Lerwill and Harriet Hobday. And I'll read you the blurb from the back of this one. It says, picture a city. What do you see? Traffic and tower blocks? Or maybe you imagine something wilder. From the pitter-patter of penguins in Cape Town, to the prowl of a leopard in Mumbai, to the splash of a seal in Sydney, the city is home to all sorts of unexpected animals. So open your eyes, hold on tight, and come on this exhilarating world tour of 14 world cities. You'll be amazed at what you discover. And actually, I like the sound of this one, because I was really interested to read, sort of since the start of the first lockdown last year, about when towns and cities had been much quieter than usual, and had been, wild animals that you wouldn't usually see around had found their way into cities. Had stories of some really unusual creatures on the streets. And this one isn't about that specifically, but it is about all the different wild animals that you can find in various cities around the world, because obviously it's quite different. What you see in London isn't the same as what you'd see in Tokyo or Sydney or Mumbai or, New York or anywhere. So there are cities all around the world mentioned in this. And I really like that. I really like things that make us stop and think and look at something we think we know in a really different way, and look for unusual things as well. So yeah, I'll just show you a quick spread. Which city will we land on? Paris, this one. So each spread is beautiful and pure, and you'll be able to spot some landmarks and things that you might recognise in various cities. So some of you may know what this famous structure is in Paris, the Eiffel Tower. And then there's sort of text spread around the pages telling you about the various different creatures that you'll find in that place. So lovely, really, really interesting non-fiction book. And in these times at the moment when it's obviously hard for us to travel anywhere really, I love things as well that take us on journeys around the world and adventures to places that we can't really get to right now. So that's it for me from this week. I hope you have a lovely week. Happy reading, and I'll see you soon.